Imagine this: you wake up tomorrow, and everything you ever believed in your morals, your goals, your sense of right and wrong suddenly feels hollow. Not because someone disproved them, but because they no longer feel true. That's what Nietzsche meant when he said God is dead. He wasn't talking about religion alone. He meant the source of meaning had collapsed. The thing that gave life order, whether it was God, morality, tradition, progress, it was gone. Or at least it had been emptied out by centuries of critique, science, cynicism, and modernity. You can feel this today in how people talk. We don't believe, we signal. We don't trust, we doubt. Even love feels complicated now. It's like we've forgotten how to experience something raw without putting it through 100 layers of analysis, memes, hot takes, and debates. We were raised in a world of structure, school, rules, beliefs, but those structures now feel like paper houses in a storm. And you, sitting there wondering why everything feels so unstable, you're not crazy. You're just seeing clearly. This world is a mess because the foundation cracked. And Nietzsche told us it would. But here's the twist. Nietzsche didn't mourn the death of God. He celebrated it. Because he believed that as long as we were clinging to external sources of value, whether divine or societal, we'd never be truly free. But here's where the danger starts. When the old values die and the new ones haven't yet been created, what fills the gap? Nihilism. The belief that nothing matters. And let me tell you, it doesn't just creep in, it devours. You start to feel it when your achievements don't satisfy you, when your relationships feel scripted, when even pleasure starts to feel manufactured. You begin to ask, what's the point? And when that question echoes without an answer, that's the void Nietzsche warned us about. Now, here's the crazy part. We live in the age Nietzsche predicted. Hyper-rationality, skepticism everywhere. We tear things down faster than we can build. We expose, deconstruct, parody, but we rarely create. And if you look around at the digital world we've built, what do you see?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Content that scrolls endlessly but rarely nourishes. Debates that burn hot but resolve nothing. Movements that promise revolution but get swallowed by the algorithm. And underneath it all, people who are more connected than ever yet lonelier than they've ever been in human history. This world is a mess, not just because of politics or climate or tech. It's a mess because we haven't built a new foundation to live on. We've inherited a graveyard of values, and we're trying to party in it like nothing happened. Nietzsche called this the time of the last man. A person who is safe, comfortable, apathetic, and empty. He does not aspire. He does not risk. He does not create. He says we have invented happiness, but he's actually just numbed himself with entertainment, comfort, and distraction. And that's what I fear for you, and for myself. That we fall into the sleep of the last man, thinking we're living, when we're actually just surviving, auto-playing, swiping, scrolling. But Nietzsche didn't stop there. He gave us something more. He gave us the idea of the ubermensch, the one who creates values for themselves. The one who rises above the chaos not by retreating, but by confronting it head-on. By taking the death of old meaning and turning it into the fire that forges new meaning. And that, my friend, is the part nobody talks about. The world has to fall apart so you can rebuild it authentically. That's the only way something real can be born. But here's the hard question. Are you brave enough to build? Most people aren't. They'd rather complain, criticize, blame the system. And look, I get it. The system is broken. But if you stop at anger, or sarcasm, or apathy, then the system wins. Because it's not just oppressing you economically, it's making you too tired, too distracted, too numb to create something better. Nietzsche's challenge wasn't just intellectual, it was personal. He wanted you to confront the deepest darkness inside yourself, your fear that nothing you do will ever matter, and then do it anyway. Can you stare into the void and say, I will create meaning, even if the universe is silent? Can you get up in the morning and decide that your life, your actions, your relationships will be sacred to you, even if the world doesn't applaud? That's the question I want you to wrestle with. Not just today, but every day. Because the world doesn't need more critics. It needs more creators. People who are willing to go through the fire of confusion and come out forged, not broken. So yes, this world is a mess. But maybe it's messy because something new is trying to be born. You have to bring into existence. You have a choice. You can be the last man comfortable, numb, cynical. Or you can begin the terrifying and beautiful work of becoming who you were meant to be. Not because someone told you, not because the system rewarded you, but because you chose it. That's what freedom looks like. That's what Nietzsche dreamed of. A world not filled with sheep, but with creators. And that begins now. But you're probably wondering, how do I even begin to create meaning in a world that feels so lost? Where do I find the strength to become more than just a bystander? What does it actually look like to become the ubermensch in your daily life? In the next part, I'll show you how. Not just with ideas, but with actions. We'll go deeper into Nietzsche's wisdom, deeper into your own resistance, and deeper into the steps you can take to stop surviving in this mess and start rising from it. The terrifying clarity that Nietzsche's prophecy has come true, then this part is the quiet aftershock, the moment when the dust begins to settle, and you look around at the rubble of belief, culture, morality, and ask the most painful and necessary question of all, what now? If God is dead, if the values we were taught have crumbled, if this world truly is a mess, how do we live? Not just survive, but live with intensity, purpose, and fire. Nietzsche didn't want us to stop at despair. He wanted us to build from it. This is the part almost everyone misses about his work. Nietzsche wasn't just a destroyer. He was a creator of creators. And the raw, messy, uncomfortable truth is this: after the collapse, it is now your turn to become the architect of your own existence. Not the curator of borrowed identities, not the mimic of safe ideals, but the wild, liberated soul who dares to invent meaning in a world that has forgotten how. So let's start with a difficult truth. You can no longer afford to live according to someone else's map. The culture you were raised in, it's broken. The institutions, hollow. The careers you were told to chase, often meaningless. The roles you were expected to play, student, Employee, partner, citizen are often constructed on assumptions that no longer serve your deeper self. The people you admire may still be chasing illusions. The mentors you had might have only shown you how to function inside a dying system. If you feel lost, it's not because you're weak, it's because you're awake. Awake enough to know that a new kind of human is needed now, and that the person you were told to be will not survive what the world is becoming. And so you're left with the only real option, to build a self that is your own. Nietzsche called this self the ubermensch, not a master over others, but a master over oneself. Not a person who dominates through power, but one who transcends through creation. You don't find yourself, you create yourself. And the process is terrifying because you are both the sculptor and the stone. You will have to carve away everything inauthentic, every false belief, every cowardly compromise, every performance for the crowd. You will have to give up the comfort of certainty, the seduction of fitting in, the illusion of a ready-made life. But what you gain in return is unshakable, the power to say, I am becoming who I choose to be. No God, no state, no tradition, just will, pure, burning will to become. Now, that sounds poetic, but what does it actually mean? What does it look like to create your own values, your own life, your own identity? It begins, paradoxically, with honesty. Brutal, painful, soul-splitting honesty. You must look at the mess of your current existence not with shame, not with blame, but with clarity. What parts of your life were chosen for you, not by you? What parts of your personality are reactions to trauma or adaptations to survive in systems you no longer respect? What beliefs do you carry that no longer ignite your spirit but still govern your actions? You have to be willing to ask questions most people avoid for their entire lives. Is the life I'm living mine, or a script handed to me by people who are just as lost? Have I inherited dreams I don't even want? Am I chasing success in a world that defines success in ways I no longer believe? Once you've stripped away the illusions, and you will cry, when you do, you'll find something raw underneath. Hunger, rage, longing. The wild, sacred part of you that still remembers who you were before the world told you who to be. That part is your guide. Nietzsche called it your Dionysian spirit, the chaotic, intuitive, passionate life force that refuses to be caged. It's what children have before they're shamed into obedience. It's what artists tap into when they create something that changes the world. It's what rebels follow when they tear down empires. That voice inside you, the one that says, I was not born for this dull life, listen to it. Not because it has all the answers, but because it's the only voice that still knows how to feel alive in a deadening world. But listening to that voice is only the beginning. Creation requires confrontation. You will face resistance from every side: your family, your peers, your culture, your own self-doubt. The world doesn't want you to become who you are. It wants you to stay predictable, contained, profitable. But Nietzsche made it clear, you must become a warrior of the soul, not violent, but uncompromising. You have to be willing to break away, even if it means being misunderstood. You have to be willing to walk alone, even if the path is dark. And most importantly, you must create, not just think, not just feel, but create. Create your beliefs. Create your purpose. Create your art. Create your rituals. Create your language. Create your version of what it means to be a good human in this age. Do not underestimate how radical that is. We live in a time where irony is easier than integrity, where performance is easier than presence, where repeating the latest narrative is easier than wrestling with truth. But you are not here for easy. You are here to build, and building is slow. It's lonely. It's messy. You will fall into despair. You will doubt your own fire. You will want to go back to the comfort of conformity. But if you persist, if you keep carving your soul against the stone of reality, you will start to shine with something that cannot be replicated: authenticity. And that, in Nietzsche's world, is sacred. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like waking up and choosing a new kind of discipline. Not the discipline of obeying rules, but the discipline of protecting your flame. It looks like saying no to things that drain your spirit, even if they bring approval. It looks like saying yes to things that nourish your soul, even if they confuse others. It looks like writing, painting, building, dancing, speaking not to be seen, but to express something real. It looks like reading not to impress people, but to challenge yourself. It looks like finding a few others who are also breaking free and building a tribe not of agreement, but of honesty. It looks like refusing to numb your pain and instead asking what your pain is trying to teach you. And above all, it looks like taking responsibility for your own existence. Nietzsche's freedom is not comfort, it's fire. He believed that when we truly claim our lives, we also claim our suffering. No more blaming. No more waiting for saviors. No more hoping that systems will change. You become the author, the director, the creator of your own myth. Your life becomes your art, and every choice you make either brings you closer to your true self or further away. You will fail. That's part of it. Nietzsche knew that. He wrote of eternal recurrence, the idea that you should live as if every moment will be repeated forever. It's terrifying, but it's also a gift, because it forces you to ask, would I choose this life again? Would I choose this path, this love, this struggle, this version of myself forever? And if the answer is no, then you are being called to change, not out of fear, but out of love for who you could become. This isn't self-help. It's self-confrontation. This isn't feel-good motivation. It's a call to war against illusion, against cowardice, against the forces that would rather you stay asleep. Nietzsche didn't want you to be happy. He wanted you to be whole. And that wholeness comes only when you embrace both your light and your shadow, your strength and your wounds, your dreams and your death. You must look at the abyss, not to fall into it, but to build a bridge over it. And that bridge is your life's work. You won't do this perfectly. No one does. But if you wake up each day and ask, what does it mean to live with courage today? You're already on the path. If you listen to the whispers inside you that say there's more, you're already resisting the last man. If you refuse to become a parody of yourself and instead lean into the terrifying freedom of becoming real, you are already becoming the ubermensch. This world is a mess, but you don't have to be. You can rise from the rubble. You can turn collapse into creation. You can live a life that is yours, even if the world doesn't understand it. Because in the end, Nietzsche didn't just predict the crisis we are living through. He handed us the map for how to respond, with fire, with courage, with becoming. And now, the final question: what does the world look like when more of us do this? When creators, not followers, become the new normal? When we build a post-nihilistic world not from fear, but from radical, liberated creation? That's where we go next. If we've already faced the collapse, if we've stood in the ruins of meaning, looked around, and chosen not to surrender but to build, then this final stage is not about you anymore. It's about what happens when many of us make that same choice. What happens when a generation of broken, brilliant, alienated individuals stops trying to fix a dying system and instead births a new one entirely? This part, this last stretch of our journey, is not theoretical, it's the blueprint for revolution. Not with weapons or flags or parties, but with presence, depth, creation, and courage. This is where philosophy stops being a thought experiment and becomes a fire. This is where Nietzsche's wildest dream, the rise of a new kind of human, becomes something real. And if you think this is still just about you, your career, your sense of peace, then you haven't seen the full scale yet. Because if even a small group of people like you choose to stop participating in a shallow, hollow world and begin instead to create from the core of who they are, you don't just change your life, you change the world. Let's return to the central truth. The world is a mess, morally, spiritually, emotionally. It's in chaos. But here's something we haven't said directly yet: the chaos is not a mistake. The collapse of meaning is not the end of history. It's the beginning of your responsibility. You see, Nietzsche didn't just write about the abyss to scare us. He described it because he knew that what comes after nihilism isn't despair, it's transformation. And transformation doesn't come from the top down. It comes from the bottom up, from the soul up, from individuals who no longer outsource their worth, who stop waiting for institutions to fix them, who stop blaming the world for their suffering, and who begin to channel all of that pain, that confusion, that rage into something sacred. Sacred creation is the cure. And no, I don't mean sacred in the religious sense, necessarily. I mean sacred in the existential sense, creation that rises from the deepest part of you. Creation that is honest, that costs you something, that leaves you changed. Whether it's music, writing, architecture, friendship, education, community, when it's born from truth instead of imitation, it becomes medicine. And the world is sick right now. Not just politically, not just economically, but spiritually. The sickness is disconnection. The symptoms are apathy, loneliness, distraction, conformity, outrage. And the only antidote is people who feel deeply enough to create again. People who are willing to hurt honestly, speak courageously, and build slowly. You don't need a title or a platform to do this. You don't need 1 million followers or a degree in philosophy. You just need one moment of clarity. One moment where you realize that you are here to shape reality, not passively consume it. And that clarity becomes a ripple. It touches how you speak, how you listen, how you love. It changes the way you move through a room. You stop apologizing for your depth. You stop numbing your fire, and slowly others around you begin to remember who they are too. That's the secret of this whole journey. The ubermensch was never meant to be a lone wolf walking above others. The ubermensch is the seed, the prototype of what we all can become when we take responsibility for the meaning of life. So let's talk practically. What does it mean to heal the world by becoming more than human? It means we redefine what it means to be human in the first place. No longer a consumer, no longer a cog in an economy, no longer a bundle of neuroses performing for invisible audiences, but a creator, a presence, a sovereign intelligence embedded in a body who honors emotion as much as reason, who chooses freedom over approval, and who dares to care even when it hurts. We need humans who remember how to grieve properly, how to dance, how to disagree with grace, how to build communities that aren't built around outrage, but around vision. And all of that begins in the individual, you. It starts when you stop seeking validation and begin seeking alignment. It starts when your goals are no longer about status or escape, but about impact and truth. You don't just want to be rich, you want to build something that matters. You don't just want followers, you want to lead people back to themselves. You don't just want comfort, you want depth and connection and something real. And when you start living like that, the world notices, not instantly, not loudly, but deeply. People around you begin to soften. They ask questions. They reflect. They wake up. And soon you realize that the mess of the world isn't something you have to fix by yourself, but that your way of being is already a form of healing. You start to see yourself as a node in a vast network of transformation. Every courageous choice you make, every honest word, every piece of art, every refusal to lie, every time you choose love over fear is a signal, a flare, a call to others who are still trapped in the fog. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be alive and visible, and your presence will do the rest. But don't get it twisted. This is hard. It's painful. You will be rejected. You will be misunderstood. You will be called crazy or arrogant or idealistic. The world doesn't yet know what to do with people who are free, and it will try to tame you. But Nietzsche knew this. He once said, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." Your task isn't to shrink. It's to keep flying, to keep building, to keep becoming more than human, not in the sense of becoming a machine or a god, but in the sense of becoming whole, integrated, alive in every dimension of your being. This world needs wholeness. It needs humans who are no longer split between soul and society, between longing and duty, between truth and approval. We need people who can walk into the chaos with clear eyes and open hearts and say, "Yes, this world is broken, but I am not here to mourn. I am here to create." You don't need to wait for permission. You don't need to wait for the world to become worthy. The world will never become worthy unless we build the worth into it. And the only place to start building is from the center of yourself. So here is the final challenge. Not a slogan, not a hashtag, but a way of life. Choose to become a creator in every moment. Not just when you're inspired, but especially when you're tired, especially when you're afraid, especially when the mess of the world feels like too much. That's when your voice matters most. That's when your choices count. Choose to become the one who doesn't shut down. Choose to be the one who feels and then acts, not with rage, not with guilt, but with vision. We're not here to fix the old world. We're here to build the next one. And we don't do that by waiting for the perfect time. We do it now. In our conversations, in our relationships, in our art, in how we raise children, in how we hold grief, in how we name our truth, in how we resist cynicism, in how we keep believing not in fairy tales but in ourselves. This is what Nietzsche was pointing toward all along. Not a world of nihilism, not a world of chaos, but a world that is reforged by humans who have passed through the fire of meaninglessness and emerged with something stronger than belief: intention, purpose, vision. That's what it means to become more than human. Not in ego, but in responsibility. Not in domination, but in depth. Not in certainty, but in creation. And so we end here, but not really. Because the real ending is the moment after this video stops. The moment you sit in silence and ask yourself, what do I want to build with this life? What kind of world do I want to die knowing I helped shape? What truth is mine alone to express, and what will it cost me to bring it into the world? The world is a mess, but you are not. You are the beginning of something ancient and new, something terrifying and necessary. You are a crack of light in a collapsing system. You are a reminder that the fire isn't gone, it's just waiting for someone to remember it exists. And now you've remembered. So light the match, build the fire, step into your becoming, and show the world what it looks like when the next kind of human finally rises.